welcome everyone in the room. It's actually lovely to see real people. I've done a fair few events over the last 18 months, but it's nice to see that I get on with my dog or the back of the living room, which is actually really nice. So, and welcome to everyone as well joining online. Thanks for joining. We will have a section for questions. That will be at the end. Everyone that's joining online, please do free to put your hands up and ask questions. You're muted at the moment. We will unmute you so you can ask your questions towards the end. So, without further ado, change your team's journey. So, what I'm going to do today is talk to you really about how we can make the journey teams a bit more creative. There's so much that we can do with creativity in change, but yet many organisations haven't really gotten there yet. And so, let's start with the basics. Where do we actually start with change? Now, there's 3 stages of that change journey. Launch. You need to get it out there in the business. It needs to be turned on. Sometimes this is just IT, what I would call throwing it over the fence and hoping that it lands well. And sometimes that's even just an email going out to people saying, you've got Teams, here's a link to a training guide, have fun, use it. It doesn't work well, because what happens is then you don't reach the next stage, adoption. Adoption is all about making people understand what's in it for them, what's the benefit, and how we can truly get them to understand the tools, the productivity, and what sits behind it. Because if you don't understand the benefits, what's in it for you, and how it's going to work, you can't then reach the 3rd stage, which is your true digital transformation. And that's that buzzword that we love to hear. CEOs talk about it, IT directors talk about it, but the trouble is, you can't transform an organisation if people don't understand how to use the tools, what's in it for them, or even what tool they should be using when. And transformation is that stage where you actually get your change in productivity. People start to understand and create their own new processes, their own new ways of working. And that doesn't happen unless we follow this linear journey. So, how do we get there? Principles of change management. Some of these might be quite familiar, but for us, it's always about starting with discovery. If you don't know how people are working now, what their pain points are, or what the opportunities are with something like Teams, how can you expect to sell the journey to them? You can't. You need to know where are their pain points, how you can solve them, and how to map that into the new world of working. Sponsors. Where have all the sponsors gone? The amount of times that we walk into organisations and I hear that the sponsor is an IT director, or it's someone who doesn't even know that they're the sponsor. They're just down on a piece of paper to get the project or the programme moving forward. That is not going to create a fundamental change for us. We need active sponsors, we need visible sponsors, we need people that are willing to go out into the business and talk about teams, talk about how successful it can be, talk about that transformation in the way of working. So we need them on our side to be part of that change. I'm joined today by my colleague Viva in the room, and we would be very, very wealthy if we had just a pound for every time we were asked the question by end users, what tool when? M365 is a suite of wonderful, powerful tools, but it's so confusing to an end user who's basically gone from a world of living in email, living in file shares, and now has 30-something applications to deal with. Help them craft that, define what it means in your organisation. If you don't want people really using OneDrive and you want them to live in SharePoint and Teams, tell them, guide them, help them understand that message about what tool they should be using when. Because let's face it, traditionally, we're very used to IT prescribing the tool. And then all of a sudden, you give them an M365 and expect them to just start working it. Doesn't happen. Training. Training is no longer me standing here, 30 of you having laptops, and basically going, we're going to spend the next 3 hours talking about Teams, because we've lost everyone. They'll remember 10, maybe 15% of what I've said, and it won't stick. Deliver training in the flow of the day. Bite size. Make it relevant, help people so that when they need to know how to do something, that information is available to them at that point in time. That helps them understand, that helps them really get going with the tool. And then finally, creativity. Be creative in change. Help them understand the tools. Now, I could talk to you about the principles of creativity, but rather than just talking to you about how to make that happen, I thought I'd show you a couple of examples spliced together about some things that we've worked on in the past 2 years about taking people to Teams and the wider M365 journey.
So good to see you. Hi. Okay, guys, camera is on.
Okay, ready?
No matter where we are or what language we speak.
Microsoft Teams olùdára gbogbo wa.
It's made for high-performing teams like us.
Like us.
Like us.
Like us.
Just a few sample videos there. And what's interesting about that is we very rarely actually talk about the tool in those videos. It's all about selling the benefits and the ways of working. But why do we do this? Why do we need to create such creative approaches to change? It's because there's a challenge. In the workplace, we are bombarded with messages. We've got several different channels competing, several programs competing with one another. And if you can't sell the desire to want to find out more about Teams and M365, then you've lost people because they will never get past that stage of awareness, where they know about it, they know they should be using it, but they've got no idea where to start and start exploring more. And the challenges when it comes to communication are actually quite simple. Channels. There's many of them, but don't just use one. It's about a multi-channel approach. Don't just send an email. Don't just post on the app. It's about thinking about all the means that you have of communicating with everyone across the organisation. Town halls, using Yammer, having drop-in sessions, building a network of champions to help you deliver that message at a more local/bespoke way. Competition. There are so many things happening more than ever in our workplaces. We're competing agendas, competing priorities. Everyone's fighting for their voice to be heard as programs and projects. So make yours stand out. Creativity, hopefully you saw a little bit there of just how creative you can be, but creativity to one organisation doesn't mean the same for another. It's about working with the brand, working with what's in the land with people, and helping them really identify what's going to work for them. Timing. Think about when those messages are sent, particularly if you're migrating, if you're moving people, whatever it might be. If you send an email globally, but you've got people in a different time zone, how's that going to look? If that lands in their inbox at 2 in the morning, how's it going to look if it lands really late in the day and actually they're just closing down? Think about when these messages start to land. Sender, who's sending the message? Don't, please, let it be a shared mailbox, a hidden person, a hidden agenda. They're not worth it. Send it from a real person. Even if you have delegated access to their mailbox, ask them if you can send it on behalf of them. Because trust me, they're going to open it if it comes from the CEO or the head of IT, because they'll know they need to read it. Format. Chose a scroll here because I feel that's what email represents. If I see one more long email being sent from a program because they need to tell them all the information in one email, then I'm gonna cry, because it's not about that. Break stuff down. Think about the platform you're sending on. Think about the channel you're delivering. Where and what should that format be? If you can be as creative as putting it in a GIF, put it in a GIF. Use the different forms that we have to communicate with each other in the workplace. Language. Now, I don't mean language in terms of what language the audience speak and everything should be in English, because absolutely that is a consideration for global rollouts, global organizations. But if we have to use a word like migration, then use it. But if you use the word end user one more time, I'm going to hit you, because basically it's about people. We are always changing people. We are delivering technology, but changing people's ways of working. And that's why the language we use needs to be clear, basic, and simple. Just 3 simple words that hopefully make you think about the language we start to use. I have torn apart and rewritten many a communication about to go out because it starts talking about, I don't know, the PSTN migration, which is going to deliver, savings over the next 3 financial years and whatever it might be. People don't care. They just want to know how it affects them, what they need to do, and when they need to do it by. And finally, Feedback loop. This is one that most organisations miss. If you don't have a way of people feeding back to you what they think, what they feel, and what's actually happening, you've also lost them. You need a way for people to feed back into a project or program and engage with you, and engage with that content. So where does this all lead us? It leads us to our internal communications campaign. Use that information you got from discovery to inform that. Ask people, where do you hear about change? Do they hear about it from the PA? Do they hear about it from their boss? Do they hear about it from their colleague that always knows that everything's going on? Because we've all got those people. Use that to find out how to communicate messages. Stakeholders and sponsors. If your sponsor isn't willing to stand up and speak about the program, or is not willing to send out an email on behalf of it, find a new sponsor, because they're not that role. They're just on a piece of paper wanting to make it look good. Multi-channel. Use every channel you have available. Think about the message that needs to be on there and use it. Benefits. Talk about what's going to be great and fantastic in the new world. Be transparent. Don't oversell it, but talk about those benefits and how they're going to help people, help you. What's in it for me as an end user, as a person in the organisation. Concept. Come up with a few different ideas and evolve those concepts. Make sure you really think about what's going to land well in the organisation, what's going to resonate with people. We worked with a museum once, and the whole campaign was around dinosaurs and fossils, basically saying, don't get left behind, don't become extinct, come on this journey with us. And they loved it. They thought it was very comical. Thank goodness. Launch. How's it being launched? When's it being launched? Who's launching it? Make sure that every opportunity you have, you're talking about it, and you have other people talking about it. And finally, don't stand still. Really think about the next stage, the next step, and evolve your campaigns. The superheroes one that you saw a brief clip of, in that organisation, we took that animated style, and in the next campaign, what did we do? We found the real superheroes across the organisation. Those who stood out, done the work, been champions of what was going on, and they became the next hero and the next campaign. Finally, the future and Viva. Where's it all going, and how can we start to think about that? So it's never too late to start or restart with your campaign and really start to spread that message. Think differently, be creative. It's also, let's be honest, no longer about the adoption of teams. Because if you look at your monthly active usage, I bet it's pretty good. Challenge is, what are people actually doing? Are they just logging on, joining a meeting, going away? And the answer is probably yes. Use that discovery phase to uncover the next phase of your team's journey and really think about adoption and what does it mean. Be creative, please be creative, don't be boring, don't be dull. I know it sounds easy for me to stand here and say that because we've worked with some wonderful companies willing to take a risk and actually deliver that fun, creative campaign. But do challenge the status quo, do challenge branding, do challenge internal comms, because trust me, I bet they want to do something fun and creative as well. Gamify, where possible, gamify, bring in that kind of competition, that edge. Champions love to compete, business units, departments love to compete. Think about how you can use that, but also think about your frontline workers and where there can be a bit of fun and interaction there. And then finally, Viva is going to become your change channel. It's going to become, with Viva Connections, your SharePoint, your Yammer, all in Teams, all through the mobile experience, and that's what it's going to give you. It's going to give you that opportunity to be creative. And that's how everything we do and everything we're doing can come together and deliver that coordinated campaign. Okay. Any questions? I think it's pretty much bang 50 minutes, which is the fastest I've ever delivered that. So I apologise for the really rapid speed of delivery. I can talk about this for absolutely hours. Thank you. So, any questions? Flabbergasted. So, if there's no questions, just to explain a little bit more detail. So what we do is typically we'd go in, we're a Microsoft partner, we focus on the modern workplace, we'd go in and as part of any change activity, the first thing we do is recommend that discovery phase, because that lets us uncover the real opportunities. Building on from that, we then work with internal comms. We start to craft the campaign, we start to really build out what those opportunities, build out the creative, and that's what allows us to really sell in what's going to work. We go in with a few options, normally 2 or 3 different brands, ideas, and that's what helps us deliver it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.